Hello and welcome to Playwright, a podcast about creating and sharing new ways to play. My name is Ryan Hamann. You can call me H, and we have a full house of our regulars again.
That's right. Ryan Quintal, you can call me Q, and I'm back in the saddle. I will talk about this that hopefully it's not too uncomfortable to talk about. But, over the past week, and I thank you so much, Ryan. You're not just a podcasting partner, you're a friend, and you bought me some time and flexibility as I was flying back and forth to Massachusetts. We lost a loved one in our family. It's so interesting to me that we have so many game franchises and so many even epic storytelling things like your Uncharted's and your Last of Us, but I don't feel as though, at least I know of a game or I've played a game that feels like it represents almost the mundanity of, if I can use that term, of somebody passing away. It can be very quiet, and it's, you're around people and people talk to each other, and there's sometimes this feeling of no one quite knows what to do or what to say, except, we're all kind of feeling for each other together. Yeah, it was kind of, it was an interesting experience, especially a week where I really also kind of unplugged from much technology.
Yeah, not to, not to bring kind of a frivolous perspective to this conversation. Obviously, it's a very important subject and something that has the impact. What is our show
if not frivolous?
But I've been watching The Sopranos over the past week or two.
Oh.
It's always interesting when somebody in that show dies, usually in unsavory ways. Like kind of the difference in the impact that it makes on the people who are like a part of that kind of mobster life and who kind of grow to expect it and see it happening around them all the time versus the, civilian family members who, you really remember like each person, like even the real, piece of garbage characters who, you as an audience member are just kind of waiting, like, the other shoe's going to drop at some point. He's been barking up the wrong tree for a long time now. But, it does a good job of like grounding each of their lives in, the actual kind of like familial connections that they've made and the people around them that actually care about them. And it doesn't let anyone just kind of be a throwaway character at that point. Every death has a lot of weight. And I think video games have tried to do things like that. Like Last of Us 2 obviously had, characters calling out others by name during those kind of large gunfight sections and trying to bring a little bit more individuality that way. But other than like story moments, things that are kind of built around, To the Moon and stuff like that. Like I haven't really seen the impact of death like truly and kind of fully explored.
Yeah, because it's in Naughty Dog is, I think, example number one of this, of like as impactful as you want to make something, you're like, well, in order to keep a game fun or keep the player in a flow state, I actually do need them to murder like 300 people over the course of, 30 hours or something like that. And that, it's not that it's just desensitizing, but it by nature, these people kind of just have to be, AI targets. I think that's kind of why I still to this day, like playing even shooters in a single player capacity, just because the thrill of I'm besting another person has never been a part of it for me, and it's always been like, can I beat the machine? And games like, I think Doom, the modern Dooms, and the classic Dooms, but like Doom itself is like a great example of, hey, we're gonna throw this kind of combat but also a puzzle because of the way you understand the enemy interactions. Yeah, don't like, if you're gonna attempt to say something about death in a video game, then maybe, you that doesn't by its very nature square with and you're gonna kill a ton of people.
It would be interesting if there was a Grand Theft Auto game, and maybe we're veering into the pitch territory a little bit early here, but if there was a Grand Theft Auto game in which you really had to, like, there was real accountability for the crimes that you committed.
Oh my God. I guess for every person that you killed?
you would, yeah, I mean, if the police departments launched active investigations and you had to either cover it up or go on the lam somewhere and lay low for a while. Or, I'd imagine like they don't do that because the game would be effectively over very quickly.
Right.
As soon as you
become the
steer onto a
Zodiac
sidewalk.
about 10 people in.
Yeah. But it would be a very different perspective.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's get into the pitches that we actually prepared for the day. I guess I'll go first today. What this will kind of lighten the mood, I think. But when I was younger, I used to have a game on PlayStation that I played quite a bit, and I've never been that into sports. But for some reason, when I was like, I don't know, 10 or 11, like I kind of got interested in sports style games. So I had like NFL Game Day 98 on PlayStation, and the one that kind of inspired today's pitch, which is Triple Play 2000 on the PlayStation. It's a American baseball game. Let's say American, like there aren't different variants of baseball.
Well, it's the World Series,
as far as I know.
It's the World Baseball game.
Yeah, Triple Play 2000 had a secret cheat team, like that you would enter a cheat code to, back when we could do this kind of thing. You entered a cheat code and you got to play as this team full of like absurdly overpowered characters, but each character was different in some way. They weren't just all kind of like maxed out stats. Like they each had their own separate gimmick. And part of the fun of playing with them is learning what that gimmick was. And there was a certain kind of amusement in seeing it all go down. And basically like they would have, if all of the stats were like a 1 to 10 gradient, then these would have been, they would have like one particular stat that is like cranked up to 100, like way beyond what a human would be able to do.
Wow.
Or they had some sort of a special modifier that only applied to them as a player. So for instance, there were 2 players on the team that had some sort of like their texture was some sort of like a metallic sheen. But whenever they would throw the ball, it was like a cannon launching it off. Like they would throw it at like crazy high speeds. There was a player who had a gigantic baseball bat when he stepped up to the plate. Like it was like twice the size of him. And he would be just kind of a standard, regular, everyday hitter. But if you were to bunt the ball, then you would get like an automatic home run.
Oh, wow.
It would just go like flying. My favorite was a character who, whenever he put a ball into motion, whether it's him hitting it or him in the field throwing it to somebody else, like whoever is on the receiving end of a ball in motion would fall over and lose the ball. And so it was like they were getting hit, and it was very funny because he would hit it out into the field and a fielder would look like they're lined up for the catch, and then right when they would catch it, they would fall over and drop it, and it wouldn't count as like an out. And then somebody else would rush over to try to pick it up for them because the other person was on the ground trying to get themselves up. Because the ball was still kind of rolling with that momentum, they would like trip over it essentially. And it got to be this whole kind of like Three Stooges routine. Eventually, the ball would kind of lose its momentum and somebody in the field would be able to pick it up. And then they would throw it into third base, and they would fall over. It was very funny.
I'm looking at a character that also looks like they have a flesh head helmet.
That sounds familiar, yeah. But they all had these like weird gimmicks that would make them kind of like an artifact of discovery for every character that is on the team. And I really enjoyed playing with that team. Like it wouldn't ever be a fair game, but it was just fun. So anyways, what I want to do is have a game where you manage and play a league of baseball that is all kind of superhuman characters, each with these kind of wild, over the top, things that kind of make them individually special, but it's all just beyond superhuman in a way. So I'm going to start the clock there.
I really like this idea because I feel like, I don't know, somewhere in the last generation of consoles, maybe even at the beginning of the PS4, Xbox One era, it seems like the industry just almost entirely moved away from completely whack job sports games. And, it was all very like self-serious Sims for the hardcore people that buy it every year, or something like that. And so the idea of not only being able to have fun with some character models, I know that we recently got entries in, what was it, Mutant Football or Monster Football League. So football has kind of gone back to this a little bit, but baseball, which I apologize for baseball fans, to me is an incredibly boring sport. Really could use some of this pizzazz, I think. And I look at what, was it Supergiant who made Pyre?
Yeah.
I look at what Pyre did for kind of this basketball style game, and if there's something to be done in the baseball realm, yeah, definitely different characters. You can finally get crazy and creative and put all the arenas on different planets. I know we could mess with gravity and stuff too.
Yeah, I think baseball translates to video games better than a lot of sports do. It's kind of a series of like different types of tasks that you're performing. Hitting the ball is a kind of test of timing and maybe even of aim. I haven't played a lot of recent baseball games, so I don't know where those mechanics have evolved to since Triple Play 2000. But, pitching is a kind of psychological rock, paper, scissors type of task that is also, trying to outsmart and outdo your opponent on the timing mini game that they're playing.
Right.
And then once the ball is in play, it becomes a very easy to follow spatial task of players moving around the diamond. It's very easy to indicate where you want your player to throw the ball at any time, and you have to use your judgment for, trying to get the maximum number of outs on any play, as opposed to like basketball games or football games or anything like that, where players are in motion. And so players are in motion in baseball, but everything is very orderly. Whereas in those types of games, like you lose the formation pretty early on, things kind of become a little bit more chaotic, a little bit less readable, which is exciting for those types of games. Obviously video games are about responding to unpredictability, but there's a certain kind of like orderliness of baseball that I think makes it really easy to follow. And, video games by nature kind of get rid of a lot of the things that make real life baseball kind of frustrating, which is like the slow
right.
pace
Skip.
from play to play.
Yeah. I was just thinking about this, and one of the things I would love to play with a little bit potentially in our supernatural baseball game is the idea of like a multiplayer baseball game, right? Like in real baseball, every batter's different. The pitchers are different. And so I'm wondering if you did it instead of trying to have an entire baseball team worth of people, if you kept it to 5 or 6 people, just whatever needs to be on the field. Let's say there's no substitutions. You get rid of the concept of injuries and all that sort of, tired arms and all that kind of stuff. Like literally you are pitching against 5 or 6 different people. and one of the things that I've always wanted to recreate or see be recreated is, EA games, and I think MLB The Show, they have the concept of you switching to a character and deciding to go for a steal or something, but because it's all you were in complete synced communication, right? So there's none of that actual baseball, like someone goes to steal a base and everybody has to kind of react to it, including maybe the batter or whatever. I kind of like the idea of shrinking the team size, getting rid of some of that cruft, but also maybe go a little RPG with this. Can we not the sim version of the RPG, but maybe in the outfield and stuff, you do have special abilities that you can trigger for like super jumps or different things that might make you like magnetically suck the ball into your glove and that sort of thing. And if everybody on your team is really firing on all cylinders, it might have a little bit of the emergent Rocket League style real-time collaboration communication within a team.
I don't know if there's ever been a game that, not like a massively multiplayer, but like where a good number of players are actually playing the parts of individual players on the team, like everyone in the field. I guess that'd be kind of boring because the team that's batting, most players would just be sitting in the dugout the whole time.
Right.
I don't think that would really be a valuable add to something like this, for as difficult as it would be to coordinate that many players playing together. But, maybe just trying to add different elements to this game. You could have combat types of elements while players are kind of running between the bases. Maybe there's, you could set up combat obstacles, or, a first baseman can run out with a sword and they have to have a battle. And I don't know. I'm kind of, I don't know ways to make this interesting, because I feel like if players are superhuman and playing on the equivalent of like the normal course, then everything would either be like a home run or automatic out. And I don't really know how to like incorporate superhuman elements and still have like a competitive in-between space.
I'm wondering if, in terms of that coordination or be able to sync with each other, because one of the things that makes, I feel like, tilt sports games into being a little bit digestible and easier is that because I can't control everyone, right? And it might be 2 people playing a total of like, whatever, 24 people. The ball gets hit, I hit switch character, and I'm switching to the character who's already on their way to the ball, right? Like very clear and easy. What if we, here's a potential tilt. What if you made baseball an individual sport? And it is always kind of the batter versus everyone. And now you could do a multiplayer game where literally every person in the outfield, every person on the bases is their own person. Everyone gets a chance at bat, maybe however many times. It sounds like you had a different idea, though, so maybe don't let me take that momentum away.
I was thinking, based on what you said, that it would be essentially like a one-on-one team. So one player would have to be the batter and try to make their way around the bases. The other player would essentially be like every pitcher and outfield position all rolled into one. But I don't really know how that would work, because like throwing is such an important part of, if the super speed pitcher rushes to the outfield to grab the ball, he has nobody infield to throw it to. So I don't know if that would end up working. But yeah, this other idea where essentially everybody is their own team and you all kind of cycle through, kind of individual competitions along the way is interesting.
Yeah, I'm trying to create that sort of feeling of baseball of like, there's the batter who's trying to get a home run, and then everybody else that's on that field is basically against that person. Mm-hmm. I do like the idea of...
it's kind of the way it is, though, right?
Yeah, I guess so, but without the kind of coordination. Like I'm trying to... I guess in this model, you would need to be able to reward a particular individual for making an outfield play. Like that's a way to score points as well as like throwing a strike as a way to score points. And so everybody in and of themselves are kind of creeping up the score leaderboards as they perform each of the maybe random or maybe, assigned and cycled individual tasks.
I think the difficulty with that is that I think there are positions in baseball that get a lot less action than anywhere else. And the player who's kind of assigned to be, right field or whatever is not going to have the same kind of scoring opportunity as somebody in a more kind of advantageous position would be for getting those quick outs.
What if we cycle you to every position? What if we have you start off as like the batter, but then you're playing first base, then right outfield, second base, mid outfield, third base, left outfield, and then pitcher, and then we actually score you and how you did in each one of your positions. So yes, you might be in a slow position one time, but if you're able to make a big play in that position, you still have a good chance.
Yeah, that could be doable. Anyways, we are out of time on that one. Unfortunately, I feel like we haven't quite cracked the egg just yet, but we do have to kind of behold to our 10-minute timeline. So let's wrap that one. Maybe we can maybe we'll come back to it at some point. But let's give it a name. How about Bases Loaded?
There's no way that's not taken, right?
I don't know, actually. I don't know if I've seen a game called Bases Loaded.
That might be going back to like Super Nintendo era. I feel like Super Bases Loaded is the thing.
Oh, you know what? There's a 1987 NES and Game Boy game, but I don't think anyone will be getting confused.
Bases Loaded (parentheses 2021).
Okay, that's funny. All right, let's go with that, and let's go over to your pitch. What are you bringing us today?
Also in the vein of being lighthearted, and maybe it plays off of what you were pitching. Yes, let's make a play together. I was playing Mario 3D World recently, and I've played new Super Mario Brothers U Switch Deluxe Anniversary, whatever Luigi thing. It seems to me that Nintendo continues this strategy with the Mario games of, sure, we'll let you do multiplayer, but it does not feel to me anything other than like almost like a hack week project or a hack day project where someone's like, hey, look at this. You can just put however many characters in this world you want, and they kind of bump into each other. It's a bit of a mess. And so I was thinking about, could we design a true co-op platformer? If we want to put it in the Mario universe, fine. But, where a number of players can get together, they're all trying to cooperatively finish a level together, and maybe we give them the power of transformation. So maybe any player can not only just jump and, run and use maybe a power, but you could transform into, say, a platform, or transform into a creature that can be ridden, and so you can kind of become a platform, become a Yoshi, if you will, at the touch of a button. But the idea is, can all of you get to the finish line together, less bumping into each other, more actually helping each other through the level?
All right, starting the clock. So helping each other through the level. I feel like Mario games are kind of built around the single player challenge of, creating these kind of difficult obstacle courses. I agree that the multiplayer implementation has never felt great in that, you're not only is the physics system kind of like, obviously it's pretty frustrating when you're playing with other players. You're all doing essentially what needs to be done, because Mario games are designed so tightly anyways. They aren't like Sonic games where there are kind of multiple routes through any level, and you could end up kind of finding yourself like, it feels like some Mario jumps are so tight that you end up bumping into each other, and it's like, well, where else was I supposed to go?
Right. Yeah, they had that down to the pixel.
Yeah. I wonder if instead of being super cooperative, and we can certainly cycle back to that, if these games were, if like the multiplayer was a competitive system of like, you are trying to actively ruin each other's day, and only the one who gets to the end, like there's an element of that in the Mario games where the winner gets a crown, usually the one who gets like the most points within a level. But I feel like Mario games kind of disincentivize you from being like actively hostile to the other players, because like everyone kind of takes away from like the singular life counter, and when you get to the bottom of that, then you have a game over and you have to start this stage over again. And so you want everyone to succeed. I wonder if there's a certain joy in deliberately sabotaging your friends.
Yeah, I definitely, and I love that idea as there's two ways to play this game. You can almost like toggle, I want to compete or I want to cooperate in a way. What I would like to, maybe this is part of this or maybe it isn't, but I love the idea of, even in the Mario multiplayer universe, like you hit a fire flower box and two people get fire flowers or whatever. I'm wondering if there isn't, like, if there is not power-ups within the world and you actually separated out Mario's spate of powers to individual characters, right? So now no longer just is the jump in Mario differentiating the characters, but really rather the entire, like, hey, listen, this character has the fire flower power. This character can, use can become a statue or something and become a platform in a way. If you can kind of almost develop like a class-based platformer, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, there was a game that came out a few years back, probably 2017, somewhere around there, called, I don't remember now. I'll have to look it up. Yes, it is called Unruly Heroes. It is a game based on the Journey to the West, kind of Chinese mythology story that is a 4-player side-on platformer made by an indie studio that is comprised of a lot of people who worked on the Rayman games before that. And so, it carries forward that Rayman Legend style. I didn't care for the game that much, but it did have, each character of the 4 kind of main characters in the game had different abilities that you needed to, you needed their individual abilities to surpass certain obstacles. In single player, you would be able to kind of actively switch between them, but I believe you could also play multiplayer, and each player would have to be kind of reactive to their own, to the obstacles that, they need to cover. Kind of like the Lego games in that way, where, there are different characters with the different aptitudes. I don't know, like, what else it really kind of brought to the genre beyond that, but, yeah, I mean, you could have kind of like 4 main characters, 4 archetypes that players could inhabit, or like I would love to find something that's a little bit more freeform. I love in Bowser's Fury recently, you had kind of an array of power-ups that you could use at your disposal basically at any time, because you would get a storehouse of them pretty quickly. Maybe even if there are fusion abilities between characters. So thinking about like Kirby 64 and the Crystal Shards, how, Kirby could absorb 2 different types of powers and get like a combination power if a compatible pair was absorbed. Maybe, if players have different types of power-ups and they can fuse together or create some sort of like a hybrid effect that would help them kind of pass certain obstacles as well.
Yeah, you're right. I think maybe this is what makes your twist of making it more about destroying others, like go platformer royale on it. The thing that we didn't get with Mario 99 was 99 Marios parachute into 1-1, right? Or something like that. So yeah, I wonder if there is but of course I would have to imagine you'd have to scale down player count, because even 50 characters all shooting fire flowers that could kill any character would be like, it would turn it into some kind of bullet hell game. What do you think about the idea of, if we don't use necessarily the whole a whole Mario power suite, but really just focus on characters can transform into platforms or transform into vehicle-esque things? I think back to like one of the things that I think is an interesting utility from the Mario multiplayer verse is the pick a character up and hold them as you kind of attempt a jump. And that maybe that's I guess their solve for how you're supposed to complete these pixel perfect jumps, but it doesn't work with more than 2 people. So you would have to design in some ways parts of the level that are almost undesigned. They're like really freeform, big gaps, and the enemies are floating. There's no platforms to be had. 2 players are going to have to coordinate with each other how they're going to mix and match going between characters and platforms together. You almost need to give your character like a second jump after they turn into a platform and try and transform back or something.
There's a mechanic in Dragon Ball FighterZ, the Dragon Ball fighting game, that in which like it's kind of like a rush attack, where anywhere that you are in the field, you can like press a button and your character will like zoom to the enemy and then start like a auto combo. Like you could do something like that here, where character can automatically like rush via the air to another player, and then can get like a additional jump off of their head, kind of like a Yoshi jump. So it kind of allows clever pairs who are working together to essentially kind of chain together what could be unlimited jumps into the air, but you're always pushing downwards on somebody else whenever you jump on their heads. And so, there's a certain kind of like, you don't want to overdo it and you don't want to push somebody else into danger necessarily, but you can use them almost as like a teleport function to get to wherever else they are, and use that to kind of create clever chains through difficult levels.
What if we also added as a layer the concept of sort of inheriting and infusing power? So you can't, launch your projectile until you then defeat an enemy. And it's kind of like, okay, by defeating enemies, I'm building my attack ammo, if you will. And I can't turn into a platform until, like, I can't turn into a platform twice in a row until I've jumped off of an enemy or touched a physical platform. And so now you're trying to kind of like make sure that you've always got the power in the tank for each other. And I even love the idea of like, if you're a platform, if the other player jumps and lands on you, that kind of grants you a jump out of transforming from a platform. So you have to be used as a platform to be able to then chain your jumps together.
Let's wrap that one and let's come up with a name for it.
Something that feels, it's almost like I'm thinking about the Force, like this power that connects everything in the universe.
Let's see. So platform and transform both have form in them, but I don't know how to link those words together. Transplatform, platformational.
Platformation?
Platformation. Is that, I mean, it's kind of a fun word.
Let me see if there's any kind of interesting synonyms for transform that we could leverage. Convert, transfigure, transmute, transpose, modify, alter. Finally, a new altered beast. Oh, this is interesting. Re-engineer or revamp. That's got kind of a ramp sound to it as well.
Revamp would be a good name for the game if all the characters were like vampires, which could be a fun twist to throw in everything.
Yeah, okay, you can become a bat, like a bat that flies in place.
Yeah. That's pretty good. I like this as like an aesthetic theme. That's sometimes the titles can be helpful. Revamp. I like it. Let's go over to our community and see what y'all have in store for us today.
This is from the subreddit Game Ideas, posted by user I hate to try and pronounce these things. Cornislet, Cornislet. This pitch is Battle Royale in the sky. So this has our Battle Royale start with players on platforms who are launched into the stratosphere. All the players are equipped with parachutes and all sorts of air accoutrement, weapons. There are floating platforms with loot in the sky. And of course, the ground is off limits. It's lava, it's shark water, it's something. And the last player in the air wins.
All right, starting the clock. I'm kind of envisioning this as like a doodle jump type of game. You know, remember that game?
Oh, yes. Of course. Yeah.
Where you're always kind of like ascending higher and higher, trying to kind of bounce off of platforms and stuff like that, but maybe with like a competitive element. Is that what you're picturing in your mind, or are you starting somewhere else?
No, I think that's cool. Actually, I kind of where that takes me is there is that one mini game in Fall Guys. I'm sure you know it. It's kind of the last one usually in a set of rounds where there's a series of kind of tiers and the ground is kind of collapsing on each one. Mm-hmm. And players are, increasingly in tougher platforming situations as they fall. I wonder if, as all players are kind of bouncing up and up doodle jump style, if there isn't like a central collapsing ring where you can go and try your hand at going and picking up a weapon or a piece of armor or something.
Okay, so there's a kind of a central hub where maybe battles can take place, where, it's a very competitive space. There are desirable things there, but you only have, the water is always rising. The shark water, I like the way they put that, always rising. And so you're incentivized to kind of keep moving, to keep climbing. Maybe it's kind of I don't know if I want this to be like a jumping based game or a climbing based game. Think about something like Grow Home or Grow Up as well, where, the climbing feels very manual and you have to find your way around these kind of tricky climbing courses. I also have recently gone back to Mount Your Friends 3D, which is a terrific multiplayer game, kind of a climbing competition where player climbs on top of a goat, which is essentially the starting point, and becomes kind of frozen in place. And the next player has to kind of climb on top of them. And then once they, reach the top of the pile, they become kind of statuesque, frozen in place as well. And you have to kind of keep climbing higher and higher until it's no longer feasible to do within the time limit that you're given. So, I think like manual climbing has kind of a frantic energy to it as well. If multiple players were doing it at the same time, I can see a lot of possibility for sabotage and stuff like that. And then maybe it could get into once players spend more time kind of on this central platform, they can gain power-ups like jetpacks or bounce shoes or whatever. And, as the game goes on, more and more of the remaining players will have these power-ups, and kind of necessarily the game style will change along with it, as people are now the only viable competitors are the ones that are having these kind of mid-air jetpack fights.
Yeah, that's interesting. As you slowly become a Mandalorian, if you will.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think would be a fun addition is as you the first few tiers as you're bouncing on, I don't know, clouds or whatever. We're in this kind of fictional universe, maybe, where that's the physics, that the first few start off as very sort of grounded actual pieces of land or what have you. But as the tower itself, you get higher and higher in the tiers, it starts to become made of a ricketier material. And so, you have we're 5 jumps in. This is instead of the map closing in, right? You have sorts of platforms that, hey, if 10 people assemble on this, it will collapse. And so so now you're like, okay, if you can be 9 people on there, you can sustain and people can get their items and stuff and even duke it out on the platform. But all it takes is one additional person to jump in, ruin the party, and collapse the platform and put everybody's life at risk.
Although, I don't want to, because that sounds like that would be the most dangerous. Well, I do like the risk reward, but if that is the primary way that players are eliminated, then I have a feeling the players that would end up winning would be the ones who just kind of play it safe and don't engage with those extra mechanics and don't heighten the stakes of the game anyways. I don't want all the best players or the players who are willing to take the risks to always be the ones who are getting, dunked because there are too many on a platform. I don't know. It just feels like it's just a little bit too much out of their control.
I see what you're saying. Well, if we give people a fair warning that things are collapsing or that too many people have reached a particular
if the
level,
water level is constantly rising, then there is that kind of inbuilt timing or countdown timer.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that works. I'm thinking about, was Doodle Jump had the mechanic of you can kind of only bounce on a cloud once or a platform once?
There are certain disappearing platforms.
Yeah, I wonder if that's something that we bring over too. Just that idea of you can't just hang out outside of the central rings and, like you said, play it safe. I mean, maybe if it's just reasonably easy for the platforms to be something where they can actually be destroyed by people with weapons or something.
So maybe everyone starts off by kind of climbing a series of vines that kind of wrap aimlessly around the course, and you can kind of jump between vines to try to find the most effective way to the top. And then as you gain these power-ups by taking risks and going into the central space where players can shoot at each other, or, a certain amount of taking your life into your own hands and being farther away from these kind of ways upwards on the outside of this kind of concentric ring. As you gain more of those power-ups, one of the first power-ups you come across is a type of shoe that lets you interact with clouds. Kind of like Mario, when he gets his cloud power-up, he can stand on clouds now, whereas he would just fall through them before. And then that allows you to jump from cloud to cloud, allowing you to ascend higher and faster. And as maybe the top 10% of players ascend faster, the water level rises faster as well. And so it means that people who haven't been spending time gathering those power-ups are going to have a really hard time keeping up and keeping above the water. I mean, they still could if they're skilled enough climbers up to a certain point. But, as the course gets faster and faster in an auto-scroller kind of way, but in a way that's defined by the progress that the people in the front are making.
That's interesting. Do you think that there's one last, like, how do we make this feel distinctly different from a Fortnite? Like, do you think instead of the ring becoming really small, or, you know, the way that sometimes Fortnite ends with people with these kind of massive structures, is there maybe the very last mechanic to ensure that that there's no more ascending and bouncing is literally people launching off of pads and having jetpacks with just limited fuel? And
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is that like every, you know, once you get the jetpacks all kind of powered up, like towards like the very, very end game when it becomes really competitive, you're kind of flying past like 4 or 5 floors of this structure at a time. You know, you're just really zooming past. The water level is rising pretty quickly as well. But eventually you're going to need fuel. You're trying to kind of like juke your opponent a little bit into, you know, maybe they stop for fuel and then you dart ahead so that you can have more time to refuel on a higher platform without them interfering. Or maybe you stop for fuel, but you mistime it and the water level is going to catch up to you. You know, I think it becomes really kind of quick and frantic and hectic towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're about at time on this, but I just as either as a separate mode or the icing on the cake, give me the last platform, just get inside of a Crimson Skies High Road to Revenge airship and start duking it out in actual air combat.
That's fun. Well, let's call that one and let's give it a name.
The idea, I'm sure there must be a game, but I'm thinking about like air superiority or something like that.
Air superiority feels a little sterile. Doesn't have like, you know, like games like Fall Guys, this type of game always have like some sort of a name that's fun to say.
I love the term jetpack. I wonder if there's like jetpacks and black something.
Let me see if this is a word actually.
I've got an alternative too if you're not cooking.
I like
something
the word clamber, which essentially means to kind of frantically climb, to clamber up something. You could be like clamber, but it's a little redundant in its meaning, but it's kind of fun as well.
I started to go in the direction of referring to the jetpack as a rocket that's you can strap yourself to, and literally calling the game Rockets and Rockets.
That's kind of fun. It's like makes me think of Rocket Arena, which it never ended up taking off. But yeah, Rockets and Rockets. There's also a game called the Rockets.
Oh no. Oh man. Clamber.
The prequel.
I mean, you could
Nice Climbers.
That would be the most playwright title. I think you found it. And the Ice Climbers have gone dormant outside of that amiibo.
Yeah, that's right. They've not had an original entry in years. I think they've only been in one game of their own other than Smash Bros, which is, I'm sure there've been cameos in the Game & Watch collections on Game Boy Advance or something. Okay, let's wrap that one. Let's call it Nice Climbers and call it good there. Who submitted that one again?
That is from Reddit user Cornislet, Cornislet.
Thank you very much, Cornislet, for sending that one in. And if you would like to send something directly to us, you can do so by going to playwrightcast@gmail.com. Go to playwrightcast.com/pitch, or you can tweet us at playwrightcast, and we encourage everyone to do so. We don't have that many episodes in the regular run of the show left, so get your ideas in before it's too late and have them discussed on the show.
Special thank you to PROTODOME for the use of our theme song Hello World off the album Blue Noise. And when you're listening to things, a great place to get other awesome episodes of video game podcasts is the Cane and Rinse podcast network from caneandrinse.com. Go listen to, how many times can I say Cane and Rinse in this? Go listen to Cane and Rinse, The Sausage Factory, and Sound of Play.
To take us out of the show, we have a redacted game as we usually do. But this time I wanted to do something a little bit special since we are recording this shortly after the show that you had to miscue, I'll be challenging you with the same game as I challenged our guest with last time around, and we'll see how much better or worse you do. And maybe it's less fun for the audience because they already know the answer. Maybe it's more fun seeing how the discovery process changes along the way. But anyways, the redacted pitch for this week is: players are put at the heart of their very own redacted movie and let loose in a fully redacted, 3-dimensional redacted with a cast of hundreds, 50 plus redacted, ranging from redacted to ice redacted, and from redacted to redacted. 3 hours of redacted, including redacted, a huge array of redacted ready weapons.
Huge cast, tons of weapons. 3 hours is interesting. I wonder if that's cutscenes. You remember how at one point video games were marketing like how many minutes of cutscenes they had?
And the Metal Gear Solid 4 just kind of changed the script so much. It's like, we promise we only have 30 minutes total. Don't worry.
Yeah, I still feel like many games still infringe upon that. But okay, my first guess is going to be, is this Borderlands 2?
This is not Borderlands 2. What kind of additional information would you like?
I would love to hear the accolades or the list of whatever top X, Y, Z games.
This is the number 2 best PlayStation 2 game of its year.
Oh.
Number 3 most discussed PlayStation 2 game of its year. Number 1 most shared PlayStation 2 game of its year. And I guess just for transparency, its score is tied with the top. So for all intents and purposes,
it's the best PlayStation 2 game of its year. So there's a big cast. I guess I do have to understand if the cast is, if they're talking about it because they're playable or not. Because I don't feel like
cast
there was
of hundreds, 50 plus redacted, ranging from redacted to ice redacted, and from redacted to redacted. That doesn't help very much, I'm sure.
Ice. Why the hell? Why the hell would they mention ice? I'm trying to think of games that are really big in scope. Is this I feel like it might be, it can't be a fighting game. Hundreds is way, way, way too many. There's no fighting game with that many characters. Well, maybe there is, but I don't know what it is. Is this Star Wars Battlefront 2?
Not Star Wars Battlefront 2.
When they start talking about cast, my mind starts going into licensed game territories. So one more time through the description and I'll...
Players are put at the heart of their very own redacted movie and let loose in a fully redacted, 3-dimensional redacted with a cast of hundreds, 50 plus redacted, ranging from redacted to ice redacted, and from redacted to redacted, 3 hours of redacted, including redacted, and a huge array of redacted ready weapons.
Something ready weapons. Okay. So here are the 3 options that are kind of knocking around my brain. I feel strongly, I think they were pretty revered at the time, the EA Lord of the Rings games of this era.
Okay.
I'm also thinking about... I feel like EA was the one that was like dabbling some of the most into this, like there's casting and there's actors in this sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The Medal of Honor, like that was a very kind of cinematic shooter of its day. And then for Ice, that takes me into like potentially a superhero like direction or something like that. But this was kind of before Marvel became the modern version of Marvel. So, but I'm thinking about like, Spider-Man or something would have access to a lot of different things. And I think Spider-Man games were pretty decent at the time. But the ice is really throwing me.
I'll also, I guess, how about you can give it another guess and then I'll give you a big hint that I think will probably unlock things for you. Okay. You could use a 4th guess if you need to.
Okay. Well, my next guess is going to be, I would have to imagine either the first or second. I'm guessing the second Lord of the Rings EA game, The Two Towers.
Okay. It's not a Lord of the Rings game, unfortunately.
Damn it.
But I'll give you an extra round on this one and let you know that it has a Metascore of 97.
Blah. That's a big hint.
Use a score of 8.4, but think of like the number of games that have ever received a 97 before.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. That now I feel like I'm looking at a Grand Theft Auto sort of thing. Is this San Andreas?
Not San Andreas, but I'll read the description and we can kind of see how
Vice
close you got.
It's Vice City. Son of a bitch.
It's not Vice City, unfortunately.
No.
Here, let me just, before we dig ourselves too deep into this.
Yeah.
Players are put in the heart of their very own gangster movie and let loose in a fully realized three-dimensional city with a cast of hundreds, 50 plus vehicles ranging from sports cars to ice cream trucks and from boats to buses. 3 hours of music, including opera, reggae, house, drum and bass, pop and disco, and a huge array of street-ready weapons. Grand Theft Auto 3.
My God.
It is tied with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and Halo Combat Evolved as the best games of that year, 2001.
That was the GTA 3 was the beginning of what we really know as the unstoppable behemoth that is Grand Theft Auto.
Yep.
At least modern Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah. Anyways, good one there. I like that we got a large array of guesses along the way. And the Spider-Man one wasn't a bad pick either. You know, Spider-Man had games with large casts even all the way back on the PlayStation 1. So I could definitely see something like that fitting in. But yeah, anyways, thanks for listening, everyone. Please do join us again next week. And please do submit some video game ideas. We'd love to hear from the community again sometime soon.
I will have my revenge. Bye.